Brian Windhorst just dropped a bombshell, if you believe it, and he said that Giannis Antetokounmpo has already requested a trade and that he wants to be a Knick. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The Clippers are completely melting down with Chris Paul now getting sent home in the middle of a road trip and Steve Ballmer putting pressure on Ty Lue and Lawrence Frank. And Zion Williamson is hurt again. Let's go ahead and get into it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis. NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball and NBA related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today, y'all. And this one, if you choose to believe it, is that Brian Windhorst says that Giannis has already requested a trade. Now, this is interesting because one of the things that's talked about a lot this offseason is the fact of Giannis requesting a trade. And we talked about a little bit ago that, the Bucks looking into a possible Zach LaVine trade and the pressure that Giannis has on that Milwaukee Bucks, ownership group in the sense that they are terrified of him requesting a trade. We'll see. Now, Brian Windhorst's direct quote said this, right? The Bucks called the Knicks and asked for an offer for Giannis because Giannis said, "I want to be a Knick." He's asked for a trade already. All right, now that's per Brian Windhorst, right? I want to be clear here. In no way am I saying that. This is not something that I started, right? Now, we have heard that Giannis Antetokounmpo would be open to being a Knick before. We heard that in the offseason, right? But now Windhorst is flat out saying that Giannis has requested a trade from the Milwaukee Bucks to the New York Knicks. And it wouldn't be hard to understand why Giannis is asking for this, right? Like, we heard that he has, been interested in the trade. He's talked about it before in the sense that, as long as he feels like he is in a place and the Milwaukee Bucks are making moves to help put him in a position to win basketball games, then he'll be open to it, right? But, we'll see. He was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks in 2013, and this is a Milwaukee Bucks team that's won just one playoff series since winning a championship in 2021. And the supporting cast in Milwaukee has gotten whittled down every single year, which now culminated this last offseason of a release, a wave and stretch of Dame Lillard, and then, turning around and sign Miles Turner. Now, when it comes down to it, the Milwaukee Bucks this season are leading the league in three-point percentage by a wide margin when it comes down to it, but they're still 4 games below 500, and it doesn't look like things are going to necessarily turn around for this Bucks team this season. That's why you hear things about trades for Zach LaVine and stuff like that as far as the interest there. But we know that Giannis has the Bucks by the ball. So let's just be 100% honest here. They're 11th right now in the Eastern Conference, 9-13 on the season. And while their offensive rating is 15th, right around middle of the pack, they're 23rd defensively in the year, 4th in true shooting percentage, but number 1 in effective field goal shooting percentage as well. The 28th ranked rebounding team in the league, and a lot of that comes down to Miles Turner. While he is a rim protector, he's just not a really good rebounder, as good as some of the other centers that they've had there over the years in Milwaukee. So it's shocking if true, but still at the same time, not so much so. Now, the reason why I say that it is shocking is because this is a Bucks team that, that has tried to make moves to improve this team, right? They haven't just sat on their hands while Giannis has this control over them. They've tried to make considerable moves, but it seems like as it stands right now, just isn't enough. And that's what you see out there as well. It just has not been enough yet for this team. And the Miles Turner acquisition, while it's been okay, right? It's been fine. He hasn't been what he's been in other stops. I mean, he's down 3 points per game from what he was last year. He's shooting the ball 5% worse from the field overall, shooting about the same percentage from 3. He's taken almost 6 3-pointers per game, so keeping that percentage about the same is great. Still 6 rebounds. He's around everywhere else that he's been pretty much for his career. And I'm not blaming where the Bucks are completely on Miles Turner, and I don't mean for it to come off that way. That's not what I'm saying. That's their biggest acquisition this offseason, of course. But they still just don't have it. And despite looking pretty good at the start of the season, right, as far as what they were going to look like and surrounding Giannis with shooters, it just has not been enough. And this just goes to the thing that, winning in the NBA is hard, and sustainable winning is even harder in the NBA as well. And so when you're trying to make considerable moves and all these type of things, taking on salary, it puts you in an even worse situation. Now, for what it's worth, the Bucks are not anywhere close to the second tax apron. They're $29 million beneath the second tax apron. Hell, they're below the first tax apron as things stand right now. So they have some flexibility and they can aggregate salaries. They can take more salary back if they choose to do so. And they have this Kyle Kuzma trade chip that reportedly that's what they were interested in moving. If the Zach, well, one of the pieces, because they'd have to move multiple, if the Zach LaVine trade tried to go down, right? So you have those aspects of things, but there's just no doubt about it that the Milwaukee Bucks aren't performing at the level that you need to secure. Now, I do think, as I've said before, Giannis wants to be in Milwaukee if they can get it together. Now, this Brian Windhorst report maybe throws a little water on my claims there, my thoughts there, but the Milwaukee Bucks find themselves right now 11th in the Eastern Conference. And when you have a talent like Giannis, that's a problem. And when you have a talent like Giannis as well that is already contemplating if being in your organization is the best thing for him, it's even more problematic. So the Bucks are going to have to find this thing and find out what's going to happen for them. They do take the court today against the Detroit Pistons, and we'll see there. But if this is to be believed by Brian Windhorst, Giannis may have already requested a trade with his preferred destination already well known. The question now becomes about, is he going to be moved to the New York Knicks, which we know the Knicks are always superstar chasing. So let me know what you guys think down below. A, do you believe Brian Windhorst? B, if you do, and the New York Knicks are Giannis's preferred destination, do you think that he has a legitimate chance of winning a title there in New York? Does that increase his chances? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. One of the weirdest pieces of news that have popped up recently is, the Los Angeles Clippers have decided to part ways with Chris Paul amongst this road trip. Now, this is an official release that came out here. We are parting ways with Chris Paul. He will no longer be with the team. We will work with him on the next chapter of his career. Chris is a legendary Clipper who has had a historic career. I want to make one thing very clear. No one is blaming Chris Paul for our underperformance. I accept responsibility for the record we have right now. There are a lot of reasons why we've struggled. We're grateful for the impact Chris has made on the franchise. That comes from Lawrence Frank. Now, reportedly, this split comes amongst some discourse between Chris Paul and Lawrence Frank and what was going on there. Reportedly, accountability is a problem there. And the way that I look at this is I say this. Your franchise sucks right now. And if you have some problems with accountability and somebody, a veteran at that, holding players accountable, I don't know. I just don't know what happens with that, right? This is an interesting situation, right? So if a Chris Paul, Ty Lue feud is going on there, they're betting on their coach. It is what it is. But this is something so weird to happen at this point in Chris Paul's career, where he's coming back, he's trying to finish his career as a Clipper, and now that has not happened. Now, what's come out with this one from Chris Haize, he says this: allegations of being a negative presence on the team are part of what happened there, and that he requested to have a meeting with Chris Paul. The request was never met by Ty Lue. And Lawrence Frank traveled from Los Angeles to Atlanta before Wednesday to personally inform Chris Paul he would no longer be with the team. So we'll see what this means as far as finding, a new solution, destination for him. I doubt anybody's going to trade for him. They're probably going to end up waiving him or whatever else it is. But this is weird. And this is weird amongst a lot of other things going on with the Clippers. Keep in mind, people have now questioned, is James Harden going to request a trade? That was something that came out over the last couple of days. More speculation based off his performance and kind of the vibe around him than anything else. And then we also heard that Steve Ballmer has issued a challenge to Ty Lue and Lawrence Frank as well amongst all of this, which came out yesterday. So right now, this Clippers franchise is in a place where things are weird, right? From The Athletic, this comes from The Athletic, said Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, The Athletic was told that he speaks with Lue and basketball president of operations, Lawrence Frank, about how to turn things around. Ballmer also made it clear that the job to turn it around is on Lue and Frank. So there you go there. And as pointed out, only 5 teams have started off 5-15 and made the playoffs since it expanded to 16 teams. That was in the 1983-84 season. So there've only been 5 teams that have turned around the start that the Clippers are on right now. And so this is just, the Clippers just continue to be a franchise. Keep in mind, all the stuff that came out before the season with Kawhi Leonard and the aspiration stuff, that's still hanging over the head of the franchise. We still don't know exactly what the NBA is going to do with that, how they can penalize the Clippers if and when they choose to do a full rebuild. So as things are right now, man, nobody just knows what's going on with the Clippers. And it could get worse. James Harden could request a trade. And if anybody this side of Jimmy Butler, we know that James Harden is a player that definitely would request to get out on things if he needs to do so. So if things just like, I get it that losing sucks. And, the old adage that winning cures all. I don't even know if all of a sudden you start stacking some wins if it cures all what's going on with this Clippers organization right now. They are in a tailspin as things are right now. But this Chris Paul release just seems a little bit weird. It's the timing of it seems weird. The getting, like, all of it is just weird and it's strange. And I wish I could say that that's probably the tip, just the end all be all, and it's the end of it for the drama with the Clippers. But this could just be the tip of the iceberg of the other things that we mentioned. So, if the Clippers turn it around, great. Not that many teams have turned it around, though, with where the Clippers stand right now. And they're 5-16 on the season, and things just don't look good. They're in the midst of a 5-game losing streak on top of everything else. And I just don't know if the Clippers are going to have enough to really turn this thing around. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Can the Clippers turn this season around? How do you feel about the parting of ways with Chris Paul? And do you believe, like some other people have speculated, that James Harden could request a trade, whether it's this season or in the offseason, if the struggling does continue with the Clippers? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Last topic of the day before we get out of here, and this should be a surprise to no one. Zion Williamson is out at least 3 weeks with a right abductor injury, and he's going to miss that time period. He's already missed 11 games on these young season as well. Now, the thing with Zion is he's averaging 22 points, 5.6 rebounds in 10 games that he's played with the Pelicans so far. But I think overall, when you look at it, Zion has played in 45% of the available games since he was selected in the 2019 draft. That does not bode well for him, his future, recovering from injuries, anything like that. And that is why we keep having these discussions on if the Pelicans should move on from Zion Williamson and just start forging the new path. That's why the Trey Murphy trade rumors and stuff are out there. Now, for what it's worth, it does look like the Pelicans have a nice young core. You got Jeremiah Fears, who I think leads all rookies in per 36 scoring so far. Not that that's the end-all, be-all. You got Derek Queen, who's been a revelation for you as well there. And you could naturally start pivoting. You got players like Jordan Poole, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. Now, I do expect some of those players to stay if they do decide to blow it all up. But you got those players that you could look to try to see what you can get back for. And that may be the place that they have to find themselves at. Now, Joe Dumars coming into the Pelicans, they issued this challenge to Zion to be better. They took the risk of still trying to build around Zion, and it just hasn't paid off. It hasn't looked like it's the right decision for this team or for this franchise, and it continues being. Now, they have the opt-out every single year where they can get out of that trade. The question now becomes about, will they do it? And I have my doubts on if they will, but, here's the thing. I get trying to trade Zion, right? Get something back. And the team that does acquire him has that option of getting out of that contract, which then what are you giving up? Draft picks, matching salary, whatever it is. But at some point, the Pelicans are going to have to ask themselves, much like the 76ers have kind of answered it with keeping Joel Embiid on the roster, is that are we better building around somebody different? The 76ers decided to do that with Maxey. Could Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen be that for this Pelican team? Could it be Trey Murphy and a combination in there where they move him and stack draft assets, things like that? That is all the questions that the Pelicans are going to have to ask themselves. But overall, this thing stand right now, man, it's rough. And it does not look like it's getting better for them with the Zion case of it. Like I said, they got some promising young players there, but that Zion piece of it keeps leaving everything up in the air. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But let me know what you guys think on Zion missing yet more time. But that's going to do it for today's episode of NBA Central. Giannis trade smoke is starting to heat up, and I think it's just going to get crazier if the Bucks keep losing. And as we get closer to the trade deadline, the Clippers are falling apart at the seams, and Zion's injury saga is just never going to end. I want to hear your thoughts on everything down below. What's the biggest story of the day in your opinion? Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well if you're not subscribed. You guys can follow us at NBA Central Pod. Send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. Like I like to end every episode on, I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.